My parents gave my brother everything, disowned me, and lost the house. Now they showed up begging me to fix it. And I'm not saving them. Hello Reddit. I never thought I'd be typing this out, but here I am. Numb fingers, bitter coffee, and a sense of betrayal so dense, it feels like concrete on my chest. I, 31 female, was always the quiet one, the reliable one, the background character in my own family. And maybe that was fine, until I realized they never saw me as part of the story at all. Let me start from the beginning, or at least where it begins to make sense. I grew up in a small 2-bedroom house on the edge of Boise, Idaho. Nothing fancy. My dad worked construction, my mom was a school secretary, and my younger brother Evan, 28 male, was from day one, the golden boy. You'd think being the older sibling would have earned me a little credit. But nope. Evan was the son, and we all revolved around him. He was the kid who got his own room while I shared laundry baskets. He was the one who got a used car at 16 while I was taking the bus to my part-time job. Every report card of mine was good. Every D of his was, he's trying his best. I told myself they were just doing their best, that maybe they loved us both, but didn't know how to show it evenly. I was wrong. I left home at 18 with 2 duffel bags and a scholarship to Oregon State. They didn't help me move. Didn't even say goodbye. My mom texted me, "Don't forget to call." I didn't. I stopped calling after freshman year. I made it through college, worked 3 jobs at one point, and eventually got into accounting. Built a decent life. Safe apartment. Reliable car. I never made a fuss, never asked for help. I knew it wouldn't come. Years passed. I'd visit on Christmas every other year. Maybe Thanksgiving if I had time. I'd sit through stories about Evan's latest job, Evan's new girlfriend, Evan's motorcycle accident and how brave he was through recovery. No one ever asked about my life. I could have been on fire, and they'd hand Evan the water bucket. Then came the turning point. It was after Dad had a mild stroke. Nothing fatal, thank God, but enough to scare everyone. I took time off, flew home, stocked their fridge, cleaned the house and arranged follow-up care. Evan? He sent a text. "Y'all good?" A month later, Dad pulled me aside and said, "You've always been the responsible one. You'll understand." Understand what? That they had decided to put the house solely in Evan's name. "It's simpler," my mother explained over lukewarm tea. "If anything happens, he'll handle it. You live out of state." I remember laughing. I genuinely thought it was a joke. Then I saw the paperwork. They'd already signed it over. It wasn't about the house. I didn't want the damn house. It was the principle. My name was never even considered. No conversation. Just erased. "You're doing fine," my father added when I sat in stunned silence. "Evans had a harder time." Harder time. He burned through jobs like matches and crashed 2 cars my parents paid for. I worked my way through everything. Alone. That was a year ago. I stopped visiting. I stopped answering their group texts. They didn't try very hard to reach me either. And I was okay with that. I thought I'd finally drawn the line. Until last week. A knock on my apartment door. I didn't recognize the number. But when I opened it, there stood Evan, disheveled, eyes rimmed red, holding his phone like it was a lifeline. "Hey," he said, voice small. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. Just stepped aside, not out of kindness but shock. He walked in like a ghost. I could smell the desperation on him before he said a word. "The house," he started, sitting on the edge of my couch like a child about to confess a broken vase. "It's in foreclosure." I blinked. "What?" "I lost my job months ago. Fell behind on payments. Tried to flip it but the market tanked. There's a line, and Mom and Dad don't know. Yet." Then came the kicker. "I need help," he said. "I thought maybe you could figure something out." I just stared. After all these years, after they handed him everything, they sent him to me when it all collapsed. Like I was the cleanup crew for the mess they created. That's where I'm at now, Reddit. Sitting in a room I pay for, listening to the favorite child beg for salvation. And for the first time in my life, I don't feel like the background character anymore. But I don't know what to do. Should I help him save the house? Or finally let it all burn? I didn't respond right away. Evan kept talking, filling the silence like he always did when he felt cornered. Words spilled out of him. Phrases like, just a loan. You're good with numbers. I'll pay you back. You're my sister. I watched him, letting the noise blur. It was like listening through water. When he finally stopped, I asked one question. Why me? He flinched. Just slightly, but I caught it. Because you've always been the one who fixes things. That line hit harder than I expected. Because yeah, I have been. Fixing Mom's mistakes, smoothing over Dad's temper, patching up Evan's messes since he was in middle school. I was the invisible glue. And like all invisible things, I was taken for granted. I'm not your fixer anymore, I said quietly. Evan opened his mouth, maybe to argue, maybe to beg again. I stood up before he could. You need to leave. I'll think about it. To my surprise, he did. No fight. Just nodded, shuffled to the door, and left like a man walking away from a building that was already on fire. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling for hours, thinking about the way Mom used to brush Evan's hair off his forehead while I poured cereal for myself. About how Dad once told me, straight-faced, that sons carry on the name, daughters carry baggage. About all the birthdays they forgot, the accomplishments they shrugged off, the years I spent proving myself to people who never looked up from their golden boy. But also, I thought about that house. The porch swings with the chipped blue paint. The etched pencil marks on the kitchen wall from when we were kids, tracking our height. The basement smell of old books and wood glue. It was mine too. Even if they never saw it that way. The next morning I called Mom. She picked up on the second ring. Oh, honey? Are you okay? There was that voice again. The one she used when she thought I might be useful. Why didn't you tell me the house was in trouble? I asked. A long pause. Then, we didn't want to worry you. No, you didn't want to include me, I snapped. You never have. Another silence. Then the tears started. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Your father, he thought Evan could handle it. I almost laughed. And now that he can't, suddenly I exist again? We didn't mean to shut you out. But you did, I said. Repeatedly. I could hear her breathing shift, the tears morphing into defensiveness. Look, I know we made mistakes, but we're family. We need each other now. Now that Evan had torched the place. Now that their golden legacy was crumbling. I'm not sure what you want from me, I said. Money? A plan? Forgiveness? She didn't answer. I hung up before she could gather the nerve to lie to me again. 2 days later, they showed up. I don't know how they knew where I lived, probably Evan, but they came together like a unified front. Dad looked older, grayer, but his pride hadn't aged a day. He stood in my doorway like he still paid the mortgage, arms crossed, eyes judging. Mom went straight to emotional warfare. We raised you, didn't we? Fed you, clothed you. Until I turned 18, I said. Then I became your afterthought. We thought you'd understand, Dad cut in. You're not emotional like Evan. You're stronger. We thought you'd be okay. That was the problem. They didn't care if I was okay. Just assumed I'd figure it out so they didn't have to. They didn't raise me. They raised Evan. I raised myself. You gave him everything, I said. Everything I wanted. A conversation, a chance, acknowledgement. And now that he's failed, you expect me to clean it up? He's your brother, Mom whispered, as if that sacred bond should erase a lifetime of erasure. Do you even know where I work? I asked. What is my job title? Blank faces. I felt the anger rise, not hot, not explosive. Cold. Controlled. The kind that sharpens your voice and steadies your hands. No, I said. You don't know me. You never tried. Dad sighed. What do you want? An apology? Fine. We're sorry. There. Now can we talk about saving the house? There it was. The transaction. The real reason they were here. I shook my head. You're not sorry. You're desperate. I closed the door. Later that night I pulled out the envelope. It was something I'd received years ago from my grandmother, Dad's mom. She passed away when I was 25, and in her will, she left me a letter. A personal one. And a bank account. It wasn't much, but enough to make a dent in my student loans back then. I never told my parents she left me anything. Evan got the car. I got the truth. In the letter she wrote, "I see you. I always did. Don't let them erase you." Now I'm standing at the edge of that decision. Do I use what I've built? My skills, my savings, my hard-earned peace, to salvage the wreckage of their bad choices? Or do I finally walk away for good? I didn't answer any of their calls after that. For days, my phone lit up with a familiar parade of names. Mom's cell. Evan. Home. I didn't block them. I let them ring. Let them feel, even for a second, what silence really means. What it feels like to scream into a void and get nothing back. The same thing I lived with for years. I told my friend Jess everything. She's been my closest friend since college, the kind of person who doesn't flinch when you lay your mess out in pieces on the floor. We sat across from each other at a late-night diner, both picking at fries we weren't hungry for. "So what are you going to do?" she asked gently. "I don't know," I said. "There's this part of me that just wants to be done. Close the book. Never look back." "And the other part?" I sighed. "I want them to see me. Really see me. Not because they need something. Just because they finally realize what they threw away." Jess nodded slowly, chewing on the thought. "They won't," she said after a moment. "People like that don't wake up. They just switch targets." That stuck with me. Later that week I got an email. Not from Evan. Not from my parents. It was from the bank. Evan must have listed me as a potential co-signer at some point, maybe hoping to guilt me later. And now the bank was notifying me that the house would enter final foreclosure in 30 days. No options left. I could have ignored it. But instead, I printed it out and stared at it under the kitchen light, like it was a puzzle I could solve. And here's the part I'm not proud of. I thought about swooping in, quietly paying off the balance, rescuing the house without telling them, letting them think some miracle bailed them out while I kept my distance. But that would still be letting them win. They'd never learn. They'd just feel saved. So I did something else. I set up a meeting. Not at my apartment. Not at their house. A neutral spot. A library conference room. Public enough to avoid drama. Private enough to have it, if needed. They showed up, the three of them, all looking like they'd aged 10 years in the last 2 weeks. Evan spoke first. "Thanks for meeting." I didn't answer, just slid the foreclosure notice across the table. "This is real," I said. "And it's final." Mom began to tear up. Dad just clenched his jaw like if he held it tight enough. This would all go away. "You came here for an answer," I continued. "Here it is. I'm not going to save the house." Evan's face dropped. "But, you have the money, don't you? You work for that finance firm?" "Yes," I said. "I have the money. I also have boundaries." My father scoffed, an old familiar sound. "So that's it? You're going to let the home you grew up in be taken?" I turned to him. "I grew up in a house. I didn't grow up in a home." That shut him up. "You want a solution?" I added, taking out a folder. "Here, I ran the numbers. You could apply for bankruptcy, get some debt relief. You'll lose the house either way, but you won't go to jail. Evan, you can liquidate your motorcycle and apply for income-driven repayment on your loans. It's not glamorous, but it's legal." They just stared at me. "Why are you doing this?" my mom whispered. "Why even give us a plan if you're not going to help?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. And in that moment I realized something. I didn't hate them. I pitied them. "Because I'm not you," I said. "Because I still care. But caring doesn't mean sacrificing myself anymore. That was the old me. The one you walked over." I stood. "I've made peace with what you did. But I'm not your second option. I'm not your emergency fund. I'm not your shame sponge. I'm your daughter. And if that means something to you, it's too late." They didn't follow me as I left. Maybe they were too stunned. Or maybe finally they understood. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel hollow afterward. There's no tidy ending when you cut ties, even when it's necessary. That night I drove out past the old neighborhood. The house was still standing, small, sagging a bit at the roofline. The porch swing gone. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just looked. Then I turned the car around and went home. To my real home, to my life, my friends, my job, to peace. Because I've learned something, Reddit. You can grieve people who are still alive. You can love them, mourn them, and walk away. Because sometimes, survival isn't a rescue mission. Sometimes, it's a goodbye. You expect closure to be a door you close. What you don't expect is for the wind to blow it open again. It's been 6 months. Half a year since I told my family, my parents, my golden child brother, that I wasn't their safety net. That I wouldn't save the house. That I wasn't the reliable one anymore. I walked out of that library with every intention of never looking back. But the thing about roots is, they rot slowly. And they smell before they're gone. I didn't plan to check. I didn't want to know. But I did. It started with a Google alert. I hadn't set one. I think I searched Evan's name one night in a moment of weakness, then forgot about it. But 3 months later, it popped up. Boise man arrested for fraud in real estate scheme. My stomach turned. I clicked. Evan had tried to pull one last rabbit out of the crumbling hat. A flipping company he set up with a friend, supposedly to turn distressed homes into investments. It was a shell. A lie. He took upfront money from 3 clients and never touched a single house. When the money dried up, he bailed. They caught him trying to book a one-way flight to Arizona. The arrest photo? He looked like a boy who finally realized he wasn't magic. That same week, I got a letter. From prison. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Evans. It wasn't long. I know I messed up, again. I never learned how to be someone without being helped. You were right. I'm sorry for everything. If you ever want to write back, I'm here for at least 2 years. If not, I get it. I stared at the paper like it might catch fire. I almost tore it up. Almost threw it in the garbage. Instead, I slid it into a drawer. And then, God help me, I drove home. Not to my apartment. Not to my job or to Aunt Mary Ann's for dinner. I drove to the house. You wouldn't recognize it now. The bank sold it to an out-of-state company that turned it into a rental. New siding, painted shutters, a fresh lawn that looked fake. The porch swing was gone, replaced by metal patio chairs. A young couple lived there now. A child's tricycle sat by the steps. I didn't stop. Just drove by slowly once, like a ghost circling a grave. My phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't know. I answered before thinking. Hello? Hi, is this Elise? The voice was cracked, dry, and instantly familiar. It was my mother. I pulled the car over. She told me Dad had been diagnosed with early onset dementia, that it had advanced faster than expected. He didn't remember where the house went. He kept asking for Evan, though he was still 10. Thought I was his secretary once, when she played him one of my old voicemails. He forgets the things we did, she whispered. But I remember. I remember everything. I didn't speak. Elise, she said after a pause. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not because we need anything. There's nothing left. I finally saw it. What we did. How you lived in the shadows of our pride and fear. I waited. Let the silence thicken. She added, "You're the only thing I got right." And I didn't even see it. Tears didn't come. Just a strange, sad clarity. I didn't tell her I forgave her. I didn't hang up either. I just let her talk. That's the twist, I guess. The one people never want. Sometimes the villain doesn't get punished. Sometimes they just grow old and realize they were the villain far too late. Sometimes justice isn't loud. It's slow. It's someone remembering your silence long after you stopped speaking. I didn't write back to Evan. Not yet. I'm still thinking about it. Sometimes healing isn't about rebuilding a bridge. Sometimes healing is about sitting on your own shore, watching the water, knowing you'll never cross it again, and being okay with that. You want a revenge story? I don't have one. I have a resurrection story. I buried who I was in that family. The invisible daughter. The fixer. The afterthought. And now? Now I read books in a sunlit kitchen I pay for with my own name. I teach workshops on financial literacy for girls from broken homes. I sleep soundly. I laugh like I mean it. I still carry the scar. But I don't wear the wound. If you're reading this, and you've been the forgotten one, the backup plan, the invisible child, here's what I'll tell you. Sometimes the family you lose is the first breath of the life you gain. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say, isn't "I forgive you." It's "I see you. And I choose me." That's not a happy ending. It's better. It's real.